Okay. Okay. I mean, generally this is a learner webinar, but this time I thought I would invite more people. Currently there are about 20, probably many more had actually indicated. And there was some goof up in terms of the mails that I was able to send. I didn't know that iCal, my Mac calendar, doesn't really update addresses. So the last minute we had to send out mails from all over the place. Okay, before we start, if anybody has any questions on what we are going to do today, though I thought was fairly obvious from what I had sent out. Any questions, any clarifications? Okay, so if none, we will go ahead. The purpose of today was, the purposes are twofold. One is primarily to use this as a forum to take you through PCC markers, and in this particular case, primarily CC2 to a very large extent, which is about coaching contract or agreement, and also perhaps a little more exploration to see what we can do. The second is also how to use this as a self-coaching method. And the third, of course, is given the occasion today, just a few days left for the new year. And statistics show that pretty much almost everybody in the free world, or not even in the, and also in the unfree world, make New Year resolutions. And 80% of them fall by the wayside by the time they reach end of January. And probably less than 10% actually continue through. That is what I picked up from Google when I surveyed as to New Year resolution. So it made me wonder, is there anything that we as coaches can do something more to increase this pretty dismal percentage of success in terms of New Year resolutions? And so Radhika has agreed to be my guinea pig. So for what it is worth, so we had a couple of exchanges. Not too much, just to establish a base. So we will go ahead. Radhika, are you ready?
Yes, Ram, I am.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get into the subject matter, as it were, just have a question for you. In terms of what kind of method works best for you when you make a resolution and you would like to make sure that it happens?
So to be very honest, in terms of method, if I could just better understand, what are the various methods? I mean, this is the first time which I'm attempting to make a resolution. Okay. So usually when I think of something, I commit myself to do it.
Okay.
So
this is the first time that you're making a New Year resolution?
Which I am really serious about, that is correct.
Okay. Other times you make New Year resolutions which you're not serious about?
Other times I've never really been so committed to make a New Year resolution, to be very honest.
Okay. So in cases where you've made resolutions, as you said, you made commitments and you kept them.
Yes.
What did you do? What made you help to commit and implement them?
So there is definitely a goal which I have in my mind, where I want to reach. I have a clarity of a goal, which is that I want to reach somewhere in my life and or be something. For example, I'll just take a very, very small example. For example, fitness. 2 years ago, I kind of made a commitment to myself that I will include fitness as a very integral part of my life. And it's been about 18 months where I have been very committed to fitness. I've tried various forms of fitness, whether I've tried squash, tennis, other forms of exercises, and I've gradually come to something which I'm enjoying, and it's a part of my life now. So fitness was my goal. I kept a goal that I want to be X kgs. I'm yet to reach that goal, but method of reaching that goal, staying committed to that goal, was using various forms which helps me address my larger goal. And presently I do a certain workout which just helps me stay committed to the goal of being regular with a fitness routine.
Okay, fantastic. So you are committed to making the same thing happen with the goal that you're choosing for today?
Yes. So I have a certain goal in my mind, and when I make a goal, and since I've called it out, it is obviously very important to me, and I am committed to it. So if that helps, yes, I am committed to make that goal happen for me.
Okay. So even if you say yes like that, it still is an absolute sign of commitment?
Well, I don't say yes very easily. When I'll think a lot about it. Probably I have really learned how to I'll reflect on it. I'll probably not say a yes till I'm not very sure.
Okay. So when you say yes now, that means you have reflected on it and you're very sure that you're going to be committed to this goal.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So let's start with that wonderful beginning. And are you sufficiently energized to get into the details of the conversation?
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, excellent. So we had a couple of mails. I didn't really want to go too much into detail. So at the end of it, what is it that you would like to achieve in 2018?
So, what I would like to achieve by 2018 is moving on the right track to reach, to move on the right track, which will help me, which will give me the confidence that I am moving towards my overall professional goal. There is a certain vision I have for me in the long term, which is it's more of a vision. It's like a thought which I have, a very strong thought which I have, a very convincing thought that this is something I want to be. And while I think that I need to develop it more, I need to also make certain moves in my career, in my professional journey, which will help me achieve that vision. So my commitment to 2018 is to take those right steps.
Okay. So specifically, if you take those right steps in line with that vision, by 1st January 2019, where would you see yourself?
Where I would see myself would be point number one, I would see myself standing on my own professionally. Point number two, which would mean probably not working with any organization as such. Point number two, where I would want to see, where would I see if I make those right steps, is learn something where I would have picked up some differentiated skills, what I feel I need in my current experience, which I don't have. So those are the two things I would see, where I'm working independently with some different skills. If I am presently an expert in the HR domain, I would see myself in having gathered skills in other domains which I don't have in the present.
Okay. So during this conversation, do you have anything more specific in mind, or is it something that you want to do the exploration during this conversation to decide what is that independent and what are those skills?
So, to a certain extent, I have certain thoughts in my mind. It's more about building conviction in myself that the ideas which I have will help me reach there. Point number one. Other than that, if there are, I have had recent conversations which have had me to relook at my approach. Probably I need to build more awareness around that.
Mm-hmm. So
it's twofold.
Sure. Sorry. Thanks. So would you like to share the specifics that you have in mind and then move towards awareness, or would you like to do it differently?
What I would like to first start with is specifics, because that is something which is clear in my mind. Mm-hmm. For example, I had kind of decided that, so just for everyone's sake, so that, there is better clarity, that what I had decided for myself was I'd put a certain time frame in my mind, that I will leave my current job and I will explore to expand my my experience in other domains outside the corporate HR role, which could be, explore working in my family business as one of the options. And other than that, also try to pick up some independent HR consulting work, which will keep me, which will make me stay connected to the industry, to the job market. Those were the two thoughts which I had in my mind as I leave my corporate job. So specifically around that, family business is something which is already established. I mean, my father has a business which I thought that if I were to join, it will help me in staying. It will help me being secure in a job as such, and also I'm sure that I will add value there, and I will pick up certain things, etc. The other thing is that there would be a struggle for me to find work as an independent HR consultant with 10 years of experience, with a lot more talent available out there. How will I be a differentiated talent? I have not explored around that area, but I was fairly confident that I'll be able to get some work there. So that is where I need to, build more awareness around as to how do I go about with it. Is that the right approach? Is there something else I need to look at specifically for 2018?
Okay. First of all, you seem to have thought through this quite a bit. What I understand from what you said is, first of all, this decision that you have taken to leave the corporate job, and you are outlining two things, which may be two different options, or maybe two options which coalesce into each other. I'm not quite sure at this stage. One being with your father and the family business, where you feel that you can add value, and the other is HR consultancy and so on. So are you looking at them as separate options? Are you looking at doing both together?
So I'm looking at doing both together, because I also understand that just completely leaving my domain and moving into my father's business will not give me much. Secondly, my father's business is such where I need to figure out why am I doing my father's business. I've thought a lot about it. I think it is really about building efficiency in a sole proprietor firm. My focus is how to build efficiency, is to pick up the skill. I am doing that for my own self-skill development, it's going to be a struggle for me. To work in a firm which is completely unstructured, very chaotic. My goal is how to be more efficient, because if I want to leave a very structured corporate job, it's not that I will experience efficiency when I'm working on my own. I'll have to learn how to create it. So that is my goal of working in my father's business. Probably that will be 2 days a week or something like that. That is something which I need to still, commit to myself that yes, I'll be able to add value those 2 days a week. Hence, it makes sense to me, and I will have to then convince him that I will not spend more than 2 days a week with you. The HR part is for me to be able to diversify my current experience. Currently, I'm a business HR. I have been a business HR for the last 8-9 years. And how I see is that looking at my profile, the kind of job opportunities that I get are only in this domain. So I have done a lot of networking with people from the industry who have been extremely forthcoming, and they've been very supportive to my interest, and they have agreed to give me they've agreed to engage with me as an independent consultant. I still don't have anything on paper, so I need to iron that out for myself also. So that will just help me in gathering more exposure and give me a flavor of doing something that I'm really passionate about. For example, coaching is also something which I have always been passionate about, but I just never found the right conduit. And the moment I found it, I just chased it. I just took it, and I have been, really committed to it. So if I were to just answer it, yes, both are together for very specific reasons in my mind.
Okay. What I'm curious to know is that you waited for 10 years and you were in the corporate space. And what is it that motivated you at this point in time to take this leap?
That is a very good question. So I've always wanted to do it, but I was limited by a lot of personal circumstances, which kind of made it very difficult for me, where doing a job was important for me for sustenance. I was in a situation where I had to do a job to sustain myself. I took certain decisions in my life in the last 2 years, coming back to family, coming back to the security of being around my parents was one of them. And I gave myself 2 years to settle in here, to make myself emotionally stable. And then it has really provoked me that if I don't try what is there on my mind, I will never be able to try it. And now I just don't find the need to stay in my current situation, which is being a corporate job. I just don't find the need. I've always had, just to kind of help you understand, I've always had the desire. At that time, I saw myself not having the option to explore that desire. And I always felt that if ever I moved to Delhi, which seemed like a 0% possibility back then, 5 years ago when I thought about it, 6 years ago when I thought about it. Now it's reality. And then I ask myself, okay, you've been thinking about it all of this time, then what is stopping you? And I have nothing to say to myself except I just have to do it.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out a metaphor to sort of describe your situation. What comes to my mind is that you are, in one sense, you're changing your skin. That's not your skin to be in the corporate. That's not your avatar. So you are taking on a new avatar. So now if, let's say you look towards the end of this year and you're successful in reconfiguring this avatar into what you would like to do, which is a combination of working with your father for 2 days a week, whatever the time period may be, and the rest of the time that you are trying to develop a business as an HR consultant. What is it that would indicate to you that you have pretty much reached where you wish to reach in terms of what you are looking for?
Well, for starters, if all these leads who I'm busy creating right now, if I'm still with them and if I'm still engaged with them, if I'm speaking to 2-3 people who have, assured me that, yes, we will work together, if I'm still with them, then I have made it. Secondly is if I've been able to create a brand for myself in this market, because I have worked in very good MNCs and I have worked with some really good people, and they're all aware of they're all aware of me, and they've also been very encouraging. If I have their support and they've been able to help me enter their companies as an independent consultant and give me work there, I'll know that I have been able to succeed in my mission.
Okay. So now, that is as far as the consultancy is concerned. I guess your father would tell you whether you have added value to him in those 2 days a week. Correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, before we go into some more details on this, is that as you look at it, you have a vision that you want to achieve. And the reality is that you have made up your mind to quit the job, and you're going to quit the job soon. And moving towards it, what is it that which may be challenges for you that you need to overcome during this path?
Okay. The challenges that I need to overcome for me to reach there is, I think, first of all, of course, the fear of failure, which I don't want to call it as the first challenge. I'm sorry. I'll just think a little more. I think the challenge which I will really need to overcome is I will not get validation. I will not get immediate validation because I will no longer work in a structured environment, with defined bosses and defined metrics. I will need to overcome seeking validation. Because when you work in a job and when you're giving a task, you keep getting, appreciation, recognition in a timely manner. You're doing well, good job, you're progressing well. And we all thrive on it. I think for me, it's as important as it is to anyone. I'll have to that is going to be my biggest struggle, to deal with the lack of validation. I don't fear failure as much because I feel it's going to be a learning experience. If I don't get a call, if let's say example, someone tells me, okay, there is going to be this thing which you have to take care of. And if that doesn't happen, I have to overcome that feeling that, oh my God, did they not contact me because they don't think I'm good? There could be other circumstances. So I'll have to overcome those feelings so that I'm resilient and I stay committed that, okay, if this didn't work out, something else will work out, and let me go hunt for what is going to work
out. I'm really impressed by your vulnerability and what you said, the tremendous awareness with which you have said it. Therefore, what is it that makes you feel that you need validation?
I'm sorry, Ram, I just lost you for a second. Could you please repeat?
Why do you need to be validated? What makes you feel that you need validation?
I'm not kidding when I say, whenever I speak to everyone tells me, Radhika, you don't need it. But it's a limiting belief which I have. It's just, I've started learning these new terms. So I'll just say, it's just a limiting belief. And I'm really working very hard to get over it. I mean, we all face certain circumstances in our life which kind of push us into that corner where we feel that I wish I had done this better, or I could have done this better. Probably that's why it didn't work out. And we have this internal locus of control. But not that I want to externalize my locus of control, but I need to have a balance where certain outcomes are left to to destiny, right? I mean, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Because positively, when something good happens, I'm very happy saying that, hey, you know what, this was meant to be. When something bad happens, I internalize it. I need to overcome that.
Okay. So it was well said. As a budding coach who wishes to overcome the self-limiting belief of validation. So, and again, to be able to establish yourself and validate yourself as a coach, what is today, in your opinion, in your thinking at this time, in your feeling at this time, what is standing in the way that you feel that there may be issues regarding this validation? Because of what?
You're saying why am I holding on to this belief that I need validation? Is that what?
That is one. And the second is that if you need whatever that validation that you are seeking, what is it about? What is this validation about?
So I actually don't usually have something fast to say, but what is that validation about? Oh, there's nothing. Very honestly speaking, I know I'm very good at my job. I know I've been really good. I know I'm far better than many people out there. Probably, I guess, somewhere I've never fit in. I've always stood out. You know? I've never been one of those people who fits in. And probably it's just a thought which just came to my head. Like, for example, whenever, we always have these calls where people ask, okay, do you have any questions? I've always had a question. And every time I've not bothered whether it's the right or wrong or whatever. I've always stood out. And I think sometimes what used to happen was because of standing out, you just feel kind of out of place. So probably I just needed that validation that, hey, you know what, I may have stood out, but I'm a part of you. I don't know if it makes sense. Like, I'm just probably saying that much as I want to stand out, I still want to be. I think earlier, I'm just thinking it through. Earlier, I always wanted to be in everything, but now I just don't care. Now I'm happy just standing out. So probably it no longer is required. I mean, I'm just saying it right now, but I need to internalize it.
It makes a tremendous amount of sense, but what doesn't make sense to me, let me be honest with you. Yeah. At the one level, you say that you were the kind of person who has stood out, questioning, being fearless, and so on and so forth. I'm not sure that you climbed trees and fell out of them, did all those kind of things, perhaps. Okay. So, and the other, I hear you also saying that somewhere you feel the need to be part of something, part of being accepted. And perhaps you see it as a contra with standing out. And then you ended up saying that now I have decided, and with great determination you said that, and I don't mind standing out. I want to stand out. Which of these three things is true?
If I would, because I was thinking it through, this is the first time that I thought about it. Mm-hmm. And I have taken certain steps in my life, which has made me realize that, at the cost of sounding selfish or whatever, I want to be the person that I want to be. So I want to be number 3, where I want to do whatever it is that I wish to do. And I want to stand, whether it means that I stand out for the choices that I make, I'm fine. I'm ready to deal with that. I think I have the courage in me to stand on my feet and say, yes, this is the choice I've made.
Okay.
I think, forget about all of us, I always wanted to fit in, and there were many things that as I'm thinking of those things that I did to fit in and stay in, but I was not happy. I was just not happy. I was staying in to keep up with the Johannes's or whatever it is that they say, you do it because everyone's doing it. But at the end of the day, when I reflect upon it, and I've reflected upon it a lot, I just realized that I was fooling myself, or I was wasting my time. And I think that there's anger in me. Okay, I'm being too honest right now. Probably there's some level of frustration in me that don't do it again. Even if it means you'll fall on your feet, it's okay. You'll learn how to stand up again.
Phenomenal. Now, there's a statement that I heard once, which perhaps applies to you, saying that I would rather fly and break a wing than crawl and be safe.
Than we crawl and?
Rather than crawl and be safe.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're saying, like when we're children, and you are much closer to that than I am in age, on my honor, I'm telling you that I want to stand up and I want to be myself. Is that what you genuinely feel within you at this point in time?
I do, very strongly. It is coming at a lot of reluctance from a lot of people around me who are my well-wishers. And they're like, we know you, you're very passionate, but you're not thinking it through. I mean, I know I'm dealing with it in my mind every day. I know how much I'm thinking about it. So it is coming at the cost of not wanting to hurt my well-wishers, not wanting to offend them and say that you don't know it, because there are some really senior people who are in my family. For once, I cannot share this with you, that over the weekend I met someone who's my uncle, and he's like, no, you're not thinking it through, you need to take one step at a time. But I think I don't want to do it at the cost of harming relationships, but I don't want to do it at the cost of compromising on what I believe.
Okay. So you believe that you are ready. So you quit your job. You believe you are ready to move towards this new future, the new avatar, the new skin, where you are going to work with your father for part of the time. For most of the time, you're going to develop your own business. And at one time you felt it might be because of something standing in the way, could be a fear of failure. You're sure that it's not. And you felt that validation could be an issue. And from what you tell me now, it's reasonably clear that validation is not that big an issue. You feel very strongly that you can stand up for yourself and be able to do that. So the question that comes up for me at this point in time is, what more do you need to support you in this journey for the rest of the year to stay strong with your commitment?
Yeah. So I need to, as of now, I have been reaching out to people and seeking support from them in a very, with a lot of politeness and like, let's do it in this way. You give me work, I'll work with you. I need to build more seriousness and secure that commitment there. For example, if there is this person who spoke with me a couple of weeks back and she said that you will, Radhika, whenever there's work in the NCR, I will reach out to you. I want to have that very clear conversation with her where I get it in writing and I feel more secure about it, and I give her the commitment also that yes, I will work for you whenever there's work in NCR. So I need to overcome that hesitation, which is naturally there in me because I've never done it. So I need to, like, for example, even if I'm practicing coaching right now and while I'm coaching at work, I am right now even apprehensive to go coach people outside because I'm like, I don't know how to ask for money because I'm paid salary. So I need to overcome all these apprehensions internally, which is to ask for work, which is to, if I get work, secure it. Because I'm very confident around delivery. I'm not at all this thing around that. I don't know whether I stuck to the question.
Yeah, you pretty much stuck. Yeah, what you said is sufficiently in line as an answer to the question that I asked. Just tell me, it is like you would like to close the deal, and that is when you want to move forward. Is that
yes.
a correct interpretation of what you said?
Yes, that is right. I want to iron out the deal with all the people who I'm speaking with. Even I'm speaking to consultants and I'm telling them, that help me with getting in touch with companies and all. And, if I'm able to create those leads myself, I have to go and work and get work from them. So that is what is just stopping me. Obviously, right now, because I'm still employed and nobody knows in my organization that I plan to leave and all that. That's why I've not been able to talk about it. But hopefully, once I speak to, because I don't plan to change my mind. That I'm very clear. Probably I'll extend certain things in my in my current organization to give them that comfort that I'm there with them for a little longer time if it's necessary. But I have to throw myself into the water and I have to learn. I have to learn the strokes. I have to learn them. And only I can do it. No one else will do it for me. Yeah.
Okay. I only hope that there's nobody in this group who's from the company that you work and know where you work. And if anybody sort of word, I'll go out personally and kill them. So, whatever. So moving from there, in order to do what you just now said that you need to do in terms of closing the deal, what are a few things that you would need to act upon?
What are the few things I need to act upon to close the deal?
To move towards a point where you have to secure an order and you
so
have stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm already doing that. Like, for example, I had spoken with this lady who has agreed to give me work, and I was taking it very lightly. And now what I've done is that I've requested her for a face-to-face Skype call, and in which I will mention that how about I come down and I meet you. So somewhere I need to, show more enthusiasm and not so much enthusiasm, show more energy from my end. So, and I need to work in a very structured manner somewhere around this. And of course, I need to start even looking at my father's business. I have just been neglecting that. That is something which I've taken for granted. I need to start working with him. I need to define a time for myself where I start spending that time with him and seeing, okay, where is it that I'm going to start? So that is one aspect which I am just taking it for granted.
Okay. So to build a structure and based on that structure, an action plan and follow up and stuff like that. So when do you plan to do that? Is that after you quit your job or while you are still in your job? How do you plan to do that?
So the first thing I plan to do is, while I'm doing everything in parallel, the first thing I'm going to do is the lady who I mentioned, I'm going to speak to her next week and see how that goes. And the conversation with my organization is planned sometime mid of January. And by then I would have connected with one or two people from my network who I plan to get work from. And that will give me the right time frame of when is it that I'll be available to them. So if I may share, my action plan is probably working in parallel, but somewhere I think a lot will happen once I quit, because that will give me the time frame in which I will be able to tell the other people that this is when I'll be available. Because if I just keep saying I'm coming without any time, they will also not take me seriously. So I think I need to be more sensitive to their requirement as well, not just about myself. Yeah.
Okay. But having said that, this lady that you're talking about, a couple of times you mentioned it already, and one or two other people that you have in mind, those are people anyway who you have already approached. And it is something that you might do even before you leave the job. Is that what I hear you saying?
Just conversations.
Yeah.
Those are just conversations. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are happening in parallel, but like I mentioned, which I need to overcome. I need to have those clearer conversations with something written in place with timelines. That is something I need to do once I've had the conversation with my current employer.
Okay. So the real action, the D-Day, is you to have the discussion with your employer and quit the job, and then you start working on these
leads more seriously.
Yeah. So
do
you have a date for that?
Yes, I do. That date was already decided in my mind. It is 15th of Jan, between 15 to 19, when I'm going to be meeting them for a conference.
Okay. So let's take stock at this point in time, Radhika. In terms of what you want to achieve during this session, have you been able to substantially achieve what you wanted?
So, I'll be very honest with you, Ram. I had a certain thought in my mind. I mean, I had the action plan in my mind, but I think I've got some awareness around what is bothering me. So I will say that yes, I've been able to address a certain part of awareness which was bothering me, which I spoke about, the validation part. I never ever thought of that. Never, it had never crossed my mind. I was, moving along with timelines in mind, because that's how I work. I always work with timelines. But somewhere that conviction was not there. And I think that conviction, the conviction was there, but there was a fear. There was a fear which just got called out probably, yeah. So I would definitely say that if I have it, everything, if I have everything in place, then I don't know why am I fearing so much. So yeah, I have developed a better, I'm more aware now.
Okay. So in any event, from whatever I heard from you, you had decided that you're going to quit the job. So that is something that did not come out through this conversation. And you had also decided that you're going to work with your father and you had got to spend some more time. But perhaps there was some inhibition, and that inhibition is perhaps less at this point in time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So would that lessening of the inhibition that you had, would it significantly make a difference in terms of what you plan to do for the year?
Absolutely. If I want to do it, it definitely makes a difference, because once I call out that inhibition, I will write it down once I hear the recording. I'll really ask myself that, is this inhibition worth keeping in my mind to stop me from going to my larger goal? So definitely, it will help me.
And therefore, that was really the last question with which I wanted to end this conversation. That larger goal, you sort of generally said, this is my vision. So having gone through this, now that you feel less of the inhibition, what would be the real larger goal 20 years from now that Radhika would see for herself? Just in one sentence.
What would be the larger goal that I see for myself 20 years from now?
Yeah. What would be that, not larger in the sense of size, but in terms of
Sure.
impact, in terms of value, what would be, who would that Radhika be?
I have so many people on the call who will hear this, but I hope that 20 years from now, they know who Radhika Khattar is. Yeah, that's it. I want to be a brand. I want to be a brand.
Okay. You will be.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot, Radhika. So
Thank you.
Keep me posted. We'll talk about this more at any point in time. You're free to call me. Yeah. And if there is any other stuff that comes up like peeling an onion. So now I'll open it up to the general audience. We have about 15 minutes more. If any of you have any questions on the process, why I asked a particular question, what happened, I don't want too many psychological comments on in terms of the belief systems and the limiting beliefs and all that stuff, but more in terms of the process. And if you were to sort of, each one of you were to self-coach yourself, if you feel that there would be something that would perhaps hinder you, what is it that you may need to know to overcome that hindrance? Please do ask. Anyone? I know there are several of you who are not shy, but...
Ram, hi, this is Praveen. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Praveen, yeah.
So Ram, that was a great conversation, by the way. I was really impressed with the overall conversation. It was like, because I think you spent a lot of time on goal clarity and trying to really go deeper and understand, and also you explored the emotions part very well. One thing which I observed, Ram, and I just want to check with you that this is the right practice, is that I saw you trying to clarify a lot of things as we go along in the conversation. So you clarified the goal, you tried to summarize, you tried to encourage as well. So you did a lot of encouragement in between, and then you use some lot of good analogies to raise the energy in the conversation. But somewhere that 80-20 went off, as I was saying, purely from the process point of view. So you did this purposefully to clarify the goal as well as to elevate the energy levels, or this is like depending on conversation, you decide that how you should take this coaching experience.
Yeah, okay. I'll answer it in a couple of ways. One is, honestly, I was not keeping track of it. I spoke 20% of the time or 30% of the time. But what is far more important is that the client has enough space to be free to express, and there's no ambiguity in terms of what the client is saying. So now we can go back to the recording, maybe measure in terms of time. Perhaps it may be 30%. I doubt whether it will be much more than that. The reasons, one, I think in almost all these cases, it's extremely important to get a goal clarity. So typically, I would advise all of you as learning coaches to spend at least about 40% of the time in just what is called the CC2 marker, 2.1 to 2.5. And to some extent, I deliberately did that rather than going into other exploration. And in many ways, Radhika had a clear plan in her head, and therefore there wasn't that great a need to explore far deeper. And she had a clear awareness that there was something that it may be a problem. And to be honest, I didn't really go into too much into emotions, except to point out, acknowledge a couple of times. That is what I would say. But the 80-20 itself, I would be a little careful about using the 80-20. Yes, at the level when you are in your ACC and early PCC, it's extremely important because you don't know when to stop. But when you learn to respect the client, and the client is pretty much the epicenter of your vision at the point in time of the conversation, There is intuitively, you get the feeling when you should say, when you should stop. So I think that will come with experience. That's all I would say at this point in time. Does it make sense?
Sure. I think that was very helpful, Ram.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Pleasure. Anything else, please? Anybody else?
So Ram, Mohan here.
Yeah, Mohan.
So because you are the one coaching, it's difficult for me to make just an observation, because whatever you say, I tend to take it as the right way to do it, and that itself may introduce some kind of a bias, some kind of a distortion. But having said that, I noticed some of what Praveen himself mentioned. So there were a couple of times when you said fantastic, when consciously I tend to avoid, and I have used these words in my coaching earlier, when I've said wonderful or something to that client, and it seemed wrong at that time. And it didn't seem wrong when you said it. There was also times when the paraphrasing, which is one of your favorite things, right? So it went on for quite a bit, right? So there was this, you were recollecting what you had said, perhaps summarizing in your own way certain things. And I was thinking to myself that, why is Ram doing this? Okay. So when I stopped the nitpicking business, that picking up various pieces of a conversation and what you said and so on. So one thing which came through very clearly to me was this was a normal conversation. There was none of the so-called gravitas which accompanies some of the coaching conversations I've been through. This was just a normal conversation. You were there was you were laughing with her, and you should I say, there was some kind of a half provocative thing in what you said which brought a smile to her face, and all of that stuff. Okay, so what is it that which is beyond the competencies which you would like to perhaps succinctly tell us about?
Brilliant question, Mohan. Whatever you said is absolutely correct. What Praveen said is also correct. Let's say the only thing I would say, or a couple of things related to that, is which comes back to the point that Radhika mentioned. I'm no longer in need of validation. Where I am, I break the rules when I feel that it's worthwhile as far as the client is concerned. So for me, the focus is the client centricity. It is not the PCC markers. However, I'm conscious of the fact that when I am doing something, there should be a reasonable adherence to those competencies so that people who watch me learn as well. And for people like you, even though you technically you have had only 60 hours of training, for you to be able to make these observations and Praveen to make these observations, I think it's fantastic. And that's really where the mastery comes from. The mastery doesn't come from hours. The mastery comes from the understanding of what is happening in that conversation. The conversation has to be natural. It has to be spontaneous. Yes, in a sense, I was teasing her. You are absolutely right. I was trying to get her out into something else that she was not quite ready to say. Challenging her, whatever you might want to say. So in that process, possibly, I spoke a little more than if the client had been very loquacious and the client needed at that point in time to unburden herself or himself. And here I didn't see that. I felt that there was something, if she has decided that this is what she wants to do, and yet she has something blocking her, what was it? And therefore there was some amount that I felt I needed. It was far more about intuition. So what I would leave with you is, yes, at the time that you are learning, be careful, especially in terms of the assessment, how much you follow the rules, regulations, etc. And at other times, when you are practicing on your own, let yourself go. Be natural. If you're a storyteller, be a storyteller. If you're a metaphor person, say a metaphor. If you're a laughing person, laughing. I don't know if he's here. John is one of my favorite examples. His sense of humor is something fantastic. Another person is Prem Kamat. These are people who would feel tremendously stifled if a person who normally trains them into mastery level, hey, no, you got to be like this. Their question is why? I'm not like that naturally. So that is what you need to be. So I truly I understand your question. I appreciate your question, but I cannot really answer it. Yeah. Then you have to be like NLP guys, the Richard Bandler type, where you have to role model and you have to try and see what is it that makes each little bit click. And Jay has, there was something, he picked up something brilliantly. When I tapped on the table, the validation was a high point of the conversation. He's absolutely right. At that point in time, he used the word instinct. Jay, wherever you are, the actual word that I would use, intuition. It was not instinct. Instinct is a very unintelligent response to something. And then you move to a cognitive intelligence. The highest level is intuition, where it is predictive. You don't even know why you are saying it, but it's not automatic, the reptilian brain response. It's far more of a frontal complex response. He's absolutely right. I was almost jumping out of my skin, making a noise on the table, and that made a difference. That did that. So I don't know. I don't want any of you to follow me as an example, please. Okay.
We won't, Ram.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Because I had to attempt MCC several times. Many people who I trained today clear it the first time. Yeah, okay. So, yeah. Anybody else? I mean, Bala, we have another couple of minutes before we close. And
Ram, Charles here.
Yeah, Charles.
One quick question, keeping time in mind.
Yes,
you asked the question at the end to Radhika, saying, where would you see yourself 20 years from now, or what would you see yourself being?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify with you, is that 20 years too long a period for a person like Radhika in the current state that she is to look to that extent, or should we make it maybe 5 years?
Okay, let me, it's more based on experience. When I started working with people, young people like Radhika, and when I asked them, what is it that you want to be? They almost always said something about next 3 years or 5 years. And then I asked them, okay, what is it that is stopping you from limiting yourself to 3 or 5 years? They basically said, I don't know what's going to happen beyond that. I can't control it. So my question then started becoming, how can you control what's going to happen tomorrow? How can you even control what's going to happen the next second? You might stop breathing, technically. So what happens really is we are imprisoning ourselves in a time-space boundary. And usually that time-space boundary extends within our zone of comfort to maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years. So what I'm essentially trying to do in this case, this would be the start of a new conversation with Radhika if it happens, is I'm breaking that zone of comfort, moving into a zone of discomfort, breaking down your boundaries, the imprisonment of time and space. Think about it 20 years from now. If you will, like Stephen Covey talks about the end in view, can you think about the time when you're being buried and somebody is making a eulogy speech, I don't want you to die, but can you think about what's going to be when you are 20 years ahead in your life? At that point in time, I mean, there's a pattern that we follow. Since you've been through the program, you might have come across it. Otherwise, I can explain to you another point in time, what I call a 65 back process, where it's about a vision, a holistic vision that I would like to be 20 years from now. And I found it to be extremely powerful for myself at a point in time, for my children, and almost everybody that I coach. That's a simple explanation to that, Charles.
Thank you so much, Ram. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll be quite happy to take you guys through these kind of processes as we move along this. We have just started on this journey. So, as long as, like Mohan said, you don't follow me in many of the mistakes that I have made, I'm quite happy. I'll be quite happy to share whatever mistakes that I have made in my life. Okay. Cheers. All the best. And a very happy new year. And may all that you resolve to do in 2018 bear fruit. And Radhika, especially you, I would like to make sure that it happens, whatever happens to you, what you decided. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ram. Yeah. Thank you so much. Wish everyone a happy new year. Yeah. Thank you. Good night.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Everybody.
Bye.